Okay, so first thing is, you can hear my lockup. And that's because, camera can focus, it's worn in, and it's worn too far to where there's not actual contact. Now, I had sold a SNG to an individual, and I thought, you know, why is this person in the military not care that the SNG, which I listed, had this? And that's the thing, because the way this is designed, it still works even if that is like that. See? You can see like that? Right. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Neptune Knives. To start, sometimes when you post a comment on YouTube, if there's multiple comments, in my inbox it only shows the most recent one made. So I might not actually receive notice of your comment. So if you do have a question, please send me a personal message, and I'll be happy to answer the question to the best of my abilities. And if I don't know, I'll try to go research it. Today I thought I'd go over my impressions of Strider, and kind of go over the company, some of the features, some of the the products. Now, first thing, if you saw in that last little section, is this little Strider SNG. This is my little custom Strider SNG. This is actually a blade from a Vim Crew custom made by Dwayne Dwyer. And then I took a stone-washed and normal brick style SNG handle and just switched the handles around because I like the brick style more. I feel it's more robust. Now, Strider is actually a company that's been around for over a decade. They have been making fixed blades for like 8 years until they switched to folders. And a lot of people don't realize, like, they are not new to the knife industry. But perhaps the recent success of the SMF design has perhaps brought them more into the mainstream. And perhaps people don't realize that Strider primarily makes knives for military use. As civilians, the general public, we are allowed to purchase some of the products, and some of the products are only available to specifically military, groups. But Strider has a strong heritage in that. For example, their first project as a company, if you Google this on Wikipedia, was to make to supply the Naval Special Warfare Group 1 with two specific models, the WB and BG. And then right now, currently, they make several models specifically for the U.S. military in the global war on terror. Each one has its own national stock number. And so, for example, the SMF right here stands for Special Mission Folding Knife. Other knives include the probe knife for mines, landmine detection. They're currently working on a bayonet. And Strider's also had the honor of making replicas of classic knives that are given as awards to people in the military. And most of the knife models, the names, the initials are representing of like individuals who have served in the military and perhaps who have passed on. But regardless, as a company, Strider's main focus is to provide, I would say, military with these knives. So a lot of people have said the customer service of Strider is a little rough around the edges. There are stories, very positive ones. So for example, an individual who had gone to a show, had someone steal his AR, and the Strider guys had heard of it, and the very next day gave him a brand new one. But then there's also, you'll hear that you could wait months for a knife. As a company that has military contracts, they're making knives for individuals who are using them in life and death situations. So of course those individuals get the priority. Whether or not as a civilian you are law enforcement or perhaps retired military, Strider has an obligation to first take care of those individuals. So bear in mind, when you buy a Strider, in some ways you could say, here you got this product, and you're on your own. And me and Mel, we've gone over this a lot. If there was a knife out there, and you didn't care about the company, you weren't looking at the maker, you were looking purely at the knife, and it was this ultimate knife that was really good, but you couldn't get more out of it. You couldn't get perhaps a relationship or feedback. You couldn't have anything other than just getting this knife. Is it still worth it? If you do have an issue with a Strider knife, you can mail it in. The warranty follows the knife unless the knife was modified. You have a custom knife, like for example the one I bought from Arizona Custom Knives that had the little modification done, that little whatever they were doing to try to cover up the mistake. I was told by Strider to return that to them, to Arizona Custom Knives, because of that, because that voids the warranty. So you have to look at, Strider as a company actually is very specific about who they sell their knives to. For example, they won't sell their knives to Arizona Custom Knives. Arizona Custom Knives is not an authorized dealer of Strider. And you get I get the impression you have to know their product. You have to kind of earn your place if they are going to, let you carry the product. It's in some ways it's very exclusive. We're talking, Strider has done very honorable things too. For example, when they first created the SMF, what they had done was they had numbered the first run. For each SMF that was made, there was a matching civilian number SMF with the same serial number on it that a person like you or me could buy, and then that would pay for part of the costs to produce the one that the military would receive. And then an individual in the military would receive that SMF, and so it's kind of like you helped put that SMF in that other person's hand, that soldier's hands. Their folder was selected by SOCOM to be an issue item, the SMF. And after this, they have now made the SMF a production knife. So you might say you have complaints about the products. Like when you will say, why is the pot clip this way? Well, my lock bar, will wear out, or you have these complaints, and you compare that to other companies. You say, well, okay, compared to Mr. Reeves. Mr. Reeves has a Sebenza, and for 25 years he's kept that Sebenza the same way. As if he's saying that for the last 25 years the industry and technology has just not changed. And you could say, well, Spyderco is pretty cool because you can ask Spyder, you can give commentary and put your input into Spyderco, and they'll listen and they'll modify it constantly. See, the thing about Strider is they know what they're doing. If you really think about it, the military, the government, American government, believes, actually backs up these designs. Each design aspect of a Strider has a purpose, and you can get the impression that Strider makes them, and you need to just figure out what it is you don't understand. Like, you need to learn on your own, do the research, because they're not necessarily selling the knives only to just general public. For example, they participate in Virginia. They have a military convention that Strider and I think only one other knife manufacturer is part of. And this is like a convention literally for soldiers and generals and captains, and Strider's there. So you have to understand, like, these design features, you don't really need to ask Strider or contribute your opinion to Strider, because they know what they're doing. If anything, I would feel that they're at the forefront of it, because when you compare to other knife makers, for example, Strider's inclusion of tool steels. Strider uses some of the most advanced materials you can get, and some aren't even available to most knife makers. For example, when Strider made the Nitinol nickel titanium SMF, nickel titanium can have, that metal is non-magnetic, so won't detonate mines, and at the same time it can go between 10 to 30 times the toughness of steel. On top of it, had a high Rockwell hardness. It's a rare metal, and there are only like a small handful made. That only by connection to the government, Strider has the opportunity to make that kind of knife. And they'll use Vimcrew, which is, you don't find on anything else. Of course, they'll use M4s, they'll use Stellites, they'll use Rex steels, which are still the M steels, they'll use 3Vs, they'll use a variety of steels because they're experimenting their product. I mean, you might want to say, well, you could ask Mr. Reeve, which I've tried, to say, hey, could you make me like a 3V Tonto Aluminum Zan? No, because all he does is he makes S30. That's his thing, or S35 now. Strider, you don't really have to ask. They do it already. I mean, of all the other knives out there, there are very few, and I don't know very many, minus Martin Knives in Texas, that will work with tool steels and steels that are above the normal, super steels. Let's talk about, for example, the design. Now, first to note, with gloves on, the SMF is the real deal. The SMF has got the 5mm blade, and it's just heavy duty all the way. And I tell people all the time that if you're not hesitant to carry a 4-inch blade or 3.8-inch blade and this weight, and those things don't mind you, you're a big guy, or you don't mind, then go for that, because everything this knife can do stronger and better, and it's more of an actual practical size. And when I say that is because Strider never said they were meant for tactical fighting, knives. If you actually look at their frequently asked questions, the pocket clip and the style of their knives, it is hard. On my Terzula Strider, it's really hard to pull the knife out of your pocket, because according to Mick, they didn't make the knife to fight. If you need to defend yourself, that's something you got to figure out. He made his knives to be tools, and their motto is high-speed tools for hardcore individuals. That it was a cutting tool. And so a lot of this knife, the design of a Strider offers, the grip positions and functionality. So that pocket clip reflects that. So now when you look at like an S&G and SMF, I can tell you when you have gloves, like if you have like a Kevlar glove and you're trying to manipulate an S&G, it gets a little hard. And in terms of tactical use, every reviewer you'll see online will think to them, will say to you that this gunner grip thing, this little kind of butt that looks similar to a gun, helps it lock in your hand. It does not, because when you push, if the knife goes up, very quickly your hand can slide, because there's a missing section here. In most knife fighting, if you ask, for example, Combative Edge, Mr. Walker, you don't really grip with these fingers. You grip with mostly here, down here, these fingers. And so, for example, you can't really rely on this area, and it gets thin until it gets to here. It's just not practical for that type of use. If you had to, defend yourself with the knife, that's when you might want to consider an SMF, because the key thing to remember is that thickness of width and also this area is what allows you to get a solid grip on it. So I can tell you that an SMF is much safer, especially the gloves, to hold if you intend to possibly do stabbing motions with it. Strider offers concealed carries. They offer versions, where they're slimmed down, and they offer this S&G, which is a very popular model. It just depends on your uses. And you have to take into consideration, if you perhaps think to yourself, you buy this folder that's termed hard use, and then one day, you think, hey, I'm going to take this project, I'm going to try building this thing in the backyard, and you decide to put on your glove and you use it, your hand could slide down, unless it's an SMF. That's full thickness. And this is the style that goes to the military. The concealed carries and the S&Gs are more for modern EDC uses. Other design features now, people might say, well, hey, that lock bar. Some people have lock bar issues. Strider makes their knives, they say, to work, and that's the key thing. When I said earlier in that last part that I had a customer who bought an S&G that had this, okay, he didn't mind. But you see, the thing is, Strider expects, or is assuming that, I guess you have to understand that rather than answer every single question, the answers are out there. And if you're really looking for them, or if you want to deal with them, you should kind of have an idea of their product, and then they'll deal with you. So if you understand, the way the lock is designed, if you saw, it does not fail even when it rattles. And when you grip it, it's fine. So when I thought, why did that person in the military buy it, even though, it's because that individual in the military knows. They know if they want to preserve it, to perhaps try to lubricate the lock bar. They know that that's to be expected perhaps, and it's fine. And then Strider must know that too, that if it was to wear out in the field, that would happen. Strider does not use Teflon washers because the Teflon washers don't do well with debris. And then you look at that lock bar, how it's it's got that only that point touching, and there's a gap that forms over here on this side. And they call that a shit vent, literally. For when debris gets stuck in there, it's very important that debris has somewhere to move and push outside. Because I've had a Sabenza where you just had a little bit of crispy fluorinated grease and a little pocket lint, and it didn't lock up because it got stuck in between there. So those all have design purposes. The Hinder stabilizer disc. As quoted by Hinder, the stabilizer disc doesn't only serve to stop the lock bar from going that way, it also serves to stop the lock bar from going this way. If you have the pressure of a blade tank pushing the lock bar, like you saw in the Deimos video, inward, this stabilizer disc helps prevent it from going inward. And at the same time, prevents you from, when you're gripping it hard, constantly wearing and moving this lock bar around, wearing that surface. Also, the cutouts. Again, according to Strider, all this information that I said in the last video is, you can find direct from Strider that this is it's cut out on the outside so that when the force goes down, it goes straight down. You can see it, because if this was cut on that side, then you would see that there'd be a point right here sticking out that could possibly bend out and fail. Also unique to Strider is these screws. The females are open, meaning like if you need to lubricate a knife, you can very easily just drop oil directly into that and it'll just seep through. Also the integrated backspacer. What this does is, rather than having another piece here, it allows, one, for more rigidity, of course. Two, it allows for this female to be larger, to go just directly through and have the male screw directly through also, rather than having the females be shouldered and smaller. And to deal with that, you have more simple. You have less parts, which is good for maintenance and also ease of maintaining. At the same time, more rigidity, and you're able to incorporate larger size females. All solid points. Striders, the stop pins are made titanium. They're press fitted. Again, now some of the issues. Now, if you do have lock bar and that does this, you send in a Strider. According to most forums and people, the solution is Strider will put a larger stop pin in here to make contact earlier, and then that will solve the problem. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. Now, you can also look though at the fact that Strider knives on the SNG and SMF models, they don't contact the G10, because if the titanium kept impacting the G10 would just wear it away anyway. On their newest knives, like this SMF, it does meet the aluminum and titanium side. Not initially flush, but as one side that's first contacting wears, it'll become flush. And you can see this aluminum SMF. I mean this in all honesty, that this is a step above the norm. And that's something I want to talk about. So people talk about the fit and finish of Strider. I will tell you this thing. Strider is definitely advancing forward. And you can sense that in their new products like the SJ75 Mini, along with this Terzula Strider collaboration, along with even the new, which I'm waiting for, the fixed blade SJ75. Whether they're going now finally more towards a tactical design where everything's more refined, the lockup's more refined, or they're going towards more heavy duty, revising their previous designs. This is definitely a step above the rest. The aluminum was incorporated most likely for its ability to be more corrosion resistant and wear resistant. And also now it's strengthened that lockup. And if you're thinking about getting an SMF or SNG, usually the SMFs have far less problems with lockup. They tend to wear much more or better than the SNGs and have less issues. This SNG is with the S35 steel, which they have now advanced to also. You can see, and also to note, the pivot is a female and a male. So as you use it, initially, no blade play, like you said, rock solid. But as you break it in, it may loosen, and so bear in mind that, because it is a female, you might just need to add some Teflon tape, super glue, or Loctite, and that's no problem. Some people do say that this first screw is loose. It is usually, but that's easily fixed by just tightening it, The current direction that Strider is going is very interesting. Here you have the new Terzula Strider with its more elaborate lockup, and the same, strong Strider design and manufacturing and materials, and things they've taken from their experience doing the concealed carry G10s, to working. They do a lot of collaborations with different knife makers, making tactical knives, making customs. Strider does a production, but the two owners of Strider, Mick and Dwayne, also do their own custom version knives, which are usually signed, such as this one on the blade hang right here. And so you can see these two new knives, if you have a chance to, their newer stuff is really refined. Between the lockup being smooth to disengage, to having all the tolerances be super tight, some of these new ones, the machining of this, everything is precise. Definitely, I would say that they are definitely advancing in that and moving a step forward in that direction in terms of quality. Now, in terms of lock strength, there was a test done where the pivot had been pressed down on by a hydraulic press, along with also the lock bar this direction, trying to make the knife disengage. And the AR had made it to the 80 bar mark, which is 80 bar is equal to PSI, and per PSI is 14.5 pounds, meaning roughly 1,000 pounds of pressure for this pivot, the female head to pop off, or this lock to fail. Chris Rivas stated that his can make the 400 mark. Also, in terms of dynamic force, if you saw when I whacked it, Strider knives are very stable for receiving dynamic impacts, meaning force that's moving around. Overall, I would say that I feel that it's an honor to own a Strider knife. That's something that's meant for people who are fighting for our lives, or people who are in the field, hard use, serious individuals that as civilians or as collectors, we are allowed to have some of these same